been talking about having the courage it takes to leave the boat. Sometimes we have to face our fear, embrace the adventure, and take the plunge. But what is it that holds us back from risking it all is the question. How do we overcome our fears?
Amen.
What do we do when doubt that new chapter of life God is writing for us? How do we keep our eyes focused on the goal when everything seems to be distracting us?
Amen.
Peter helps us answer those questions as he jumps, not off a cliff, but out of the boat.
Amen.
In the book of Matthew, we read about Peter walking on the water. And if we look closely enough, we may just discover the courage to follow his example. Peter often reminds me of myself at times, being quick to act without thinking things all the way through.
Amen.
He shoots out of his mouth when being silent may be the better choice.
That's right.
All right.
Peter understands failure after all he denied Christ. He experiences the soothing balm of forgiveness, and he has the joy of being used greatly by God on the day of Pentecost.
Yes.
Peter preaches the sermon that leads 5,000 people to join the church. When it comes to Peter walking on the water, he was often condemned for his lack of faith.
Yes.
Jesus does call Peter a man of little faith, but what about the other 11?
Amen.
None of them got out of the boat.
Amen.
If Peter had a little faith, as they say, then he had none.
All right.
What keeps us from getting out of the boat when it comes to trusting Jesus?
All right.
Amen.
All right. See it.
What keeps me or us from daring to trust Jesus? Today I want to look at the reason we're afraid to leave the boat and the way Peter overcame them. I want us to dare to trust Jesus completely. The first thing that must happen to get out of the boat is that our disillusionment must be dispelled. Have you ever noticed that we make the problems of our life worse than they really are in our head? As people, we are masters at creating terrible events in our minds and wearing ourselves to death.
That's right. Amen.
That's right.
Face up.
We often make our fears greater than they are. So how should we handle our fears? We must know the person of Jesus. Do you know how federal agents are trained to spot counterfeit money? They're put into a room to count real money for days. Then after several days of counting real money, phony bills are slipped in. More often than not, the agents will catch the fake money. Why? Not because they know so much about the counterfeit money, but because they are so familiar with the original.
See it.
Yeah, that's all right.
See it.
That's all right.
That's how we need to be. We must become familiar with Jesus. Then when false promises or phony saviors show up, we can immediately spot them for who they are. We must know in Jesus the most personal sense, and only through him will we be able to recognize him. The deeper we grow in Christ, the easier it becomes for us to be able to identify their fakes.
Amen.
How is your relationship with Jesus? Is he your Savior? Is he your Lord? Is he your friend that sticks closer than a brother? All of us in this room could identify the President of the United States. But if he were to walk through the door, would he know me or you?
That's right.
That's the kind of relationship we must have with Jesus before we think about getting out of the boat.
All right.
One where we know him, he knows us. Peter only leaves the boat when he knows that it is Jesus on the water and not a ghost. And for a little while, he walks on the water. He does the impossible, but then things change. He took his eyes off Jesus and focused on the storm. When Peter got out of the boat, he was focused on Jesus,
All right.
the source of his power. Then he shifted his focus from the source of the problems that surrounded him. When this happens, it will cause us to sink because we have distracted from Jesus, the source of our power.
Amen.
Distractions can come in two forms: the obvious, and the subtle. Peter gets distracted from the obvious stuff: the thunderstorms, the booms, the strikes, the winds blowing, and the waves crashing. There's a storm going on all around Peter, so it's easy to see why and how he gets distracted. He's afraid. Not long ago, he was hiding on the boat from the storm, but now he's exposed in the middle of it.
Yes. Yes.
This is me or you. We get scared by the things that look like will overtake us, and we turn and lose our focus on Jesus, our power source of peace.
Amen.
When choosing to focus on the problems rather than the power, we sacrifice our connection with Jesus. Jesus is a power. Jesus is a power that's greater than any problem of obstacles we may face. We turn from the greatest power there is to a lesser power. When we allow our problems and situations to distract us, 1 John chapter 4, verses 4. Ye are of God little children, and have overcome them, because greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world. If we pay more attention to the problems and issues at hand, then we will lose sight of the one greater than anything. Often things can get distracted by the subject things. If you're like me, then you'll get a lot of offers and opportunities to be involved in some good things.
Praise the Lord.
They're not necessary problems, but they demand a lot of our time and attention.
Listen.
How often do you evaluate those things in the light of the kingdom of God in eternity? Do you think of yourself? Do you think to yourself, is this part of God's will for my life? Will this help the kingdom of God advance? Will this make an eternal difference in the life of someone else? As I said, they may be good projects, no endeavors, but they may and can distract you from your main focus.
That's right.
The problem we have is we get too busy for Jesus.
Too big. Amen.
If the devil can't make you bad, he makes us busy. That's good advice. We get distracted by good things as well as bad. We do not need to get busy doing good things. We need to get busy doing the things Christ would have us do.
All right. Amen.
Luke chapter 9, verse 51. And it came to pass when the time was come that he should be received up, he steadfastly set his face to go to Jerusalem. Jesus knew he must go to the cross. It was his life mission. He maintained a single focus, the cross. He would not be distracted by the obvious problems, Pharisees, strife, and opposition. We must never allow the problems of this world to distract us from the source of our power, and never get so busy we stray from the purpose Christ has for our lives.
Amen.
When Peter first got onto the boat, the disciples worshiped Jesus. However, this wasn't a first-time event for them. In Matthew chapter 8, the disciples are in the boat when a storm comes up. The storm was so bad that they thought they were going to die.
That's right.
Does this sound familiar? Only instead of walking on the water, Jesus is asleep. He is awakened by the disciples. He speaks to the winds and waves, and the storm calms. The disciples look at one another and ask, "What kind of man is this? Even the winds and sea obey him." How did they get from "what kind of man this is" to "you are the Son of God"? It was something about their whole experience that opened their eyes to the power and ability of Jesus.
Amen.
Before he is just an amazing man, but now they see him as the Messiah and the Son of God.
Amen.
So how can we see Jesus for who he really is? From seeing him just as a great man to one and only that can change our lives. Simple, we must spend time with him. When the storms of life come, how long will you wait to call on Jesus?
All right.
We often try to think our way out of the problem and look to others and try to get us out of our problems before we look to Jesus. Why isn't he the first refuge in difficult times? No matter how we answer that question, there is a deeper problem. We doubt Jesus. We trust our skills, our intellect, our money, our position, or even our connections more than we do the Son of God.
Amen.
We only turn to Jesus as a last resort.
Amen.
We put him on a time limit. If he doesn't handle our situation within a certain time, we assume that he doesn't care.
All
He's
right.
not able to, or he's just too busy. What do? We go to someone or something else. Not only should he be our first choice, he must become our only choice.
All right.
I know you're probably saying, but what if Jesus doesn't help? As we all know, Jesus may not come when we want him to come,
All right.
do what we want him to do, or follow our every direction. but he does care, and he is on time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He is all powerful and will help in the time of need. Notice the storm didn't calm down until Jesus gets into the boat.
Mm.
The whole experience with Peter walking on the water happened while the storm raged. Sometimes Jesus doesn't remove the problems of life, but he shows up and walks with us through them.
Amen.
That's where our trust and faith come in.
Amen.
When we realize that all we need is Jesus, we will trust him. It will not matter if the storms rage or the lightning flashes. All that will matter to us is that we have Jesus. No doubts, no questions about if this is the right course for our life, no wondering if Christ can. That is what happened to the disciples. They have come into the presence of Jesus and just Jesus alone. They have seen him do the incredible, and that has defeated the distractions and destroyed the doubts. That's exactly what we need to do. That's exactly what we need to do. To know Christ personally, to stay focused on him and to trust him only. When we do these three things, Jesus can look at us and say, come out of the boat, and we will. The decision to follow Jesus is a leap of faith, like jumping off the cliff. One couldn't play it safe and follow Christ. Rather, we must be willing to risk it all for the sake of Christ. Are there some fears that keep you from risking it all for Christ? Are problems distracting you from the source of your power? Do doubts nag at you and keep you from learning to trust Christ? Whatever it is, the one greater than our fears, problems, and doubts here, Jesus is waiting on us to believe in him and risk it all.
Yes, he is.
Come on, leave the boat and walk on the water. Jesus says we can do it. Dare to leave the boat.
Amen.